Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on what is love. Now, we're not going to get all mushy, and I'm not going to read Hallmark cards, but what I am going to do is talk a little bit about myself, my experiences, and what I've been feeling through this time of COVID-19. Like all of you, this has made a significant impact on my life, and it's taken me time to kind of work through what I've been feeling. And the one thing that we need right now is love. Love of ourselves, love of our relatives, and our coworkers, love. But what is love? And I'm going to share with you an experience throughout my lifetime that has made a significant impact on who I am as an individual. Now, some of you know me, and some of you don't know me. For those of you who know me, you know that hugging and being demonstrative is a part of Bonnie Edes' It's Like the Air That I Breathe. So that when we got notification that there would be no more hugging, no more handshaking as part of COVID, it really sent me into a tailspin. It significantly impacted who I am at the very core and how I work in the industry that I do. So I'm going to take you back to how this became a part of my being. And so believe it or not, this is where I developed so much of my being. Mr. Larder's psychology class and my senior year of high school. I'm not going to tell you the senior year of high school because if you want to guess, I'll be more than happy to tell you if you're right. This truly is a picture of me sitting in that class, and I look content. I look happy, and it's because I was. Taking Mr. Lauder's psychology class was a rite of passage, and you can only imagine what it was like to have to teach a bunch of graduating seniors about psychology. But he had a mission. He was ahead of his time. At that point in time, and this was in the 70s and 80s, just a little clue, Dr. Buscaglia was an amazing speaker and an amazing professor. And we were reading a book called What is Love by Dr. Buscaglia. And that was pretty much the whole premise of our psychology class that year. Mr. Larder felt that people needed to tap into being compassionate, to go out into the world, be passionate, compassionate, and learn to care about yourself so that you could genuinely care about other people. It didn't seem significant at the time to me that that would become the person ultimately, or did I give credit until actually very recently when I had to do a program, a similar program, and it dawned on me when I was trying to figure out how to describe what is love that the name Leo Buscaglia popped into my head after great thinking. And I want to share with you a little bit about that because in these times, it's so very, very important for yourselves, for others, and the people that work and serve with you. A little bit about Leo Buscaglia. He was the son of Italian immigrants, and he first learned to speak English when he entered primary school. He was placed in a special education class due to his limited English, and this experience led him to become very interested in special education and most likely influenced his view of the educational system in general. He worked as a special education teacher, and after receiving his PhD in language and speech pathology, he worked as a professor of education at the University of Southern California for almost 2 decades. That was from 1965 until 1984. And you even may recall him. You may have even read his books because he was wildly popular during that time period. So his love class was, yes, you heard me correctly. His love class was an instant success at USC. It had a limited enrollment the first year. It started with 20 students and quickly progressed to 200 students with a waiting list of 600 and full. It became full within 20 minutes of registration, when registration opened. So, to back up just a little bit, when Dr. Leo Felice Buscaglia was interviewed by the Dean of Education at the University of Southern California in 1967, he was asked about his 5-year college career plan. And he responded by stating that he wanted to teach a class on love. And it wasn't until 1969, after the very tragic loss of one of his students to suicide, that Dr. Buscaglia followed through on his dream of teaching the first class ever on love. Now, I want to explain the word teaching. I placed it in quotations because to Dr. Buscaglia, who also is known as Dr. Leo or Dr. Hugs or Dr. Love, often stated that he did not teach this class, but learned from it himself. It was his general philosophy that teachers' main role is to facilitate learning rather than to teach in the traditional sense of the word. And I guess that was Mr. Larder's feeling as well, and that's why we were learning it in our psychology class. So let's look a little bit more into what people learn themselves. He felt that people learn from themselves. Now, if we look at the root word, an educator, from the educator, when it comes from the Latin educare, meaning to lead, to guide. That's the root of educating. Dr. Buscaglia agreed. He said that what it means to guide, to be more enthusiastic, to be enthusiastic with yourself, to understand yourself, and to put this stuff before others. He argued that the essence of education is not to stuff you full of facts, but to help you discover your uniqueness, to teach you how to develop it, and to show you how to give it away. Now, Dr. Buscaglia was also a man that believed in giving back to the community. He put his money where his mouth is, his words into action. He was a doer in every sense of the word. Throughout his work, you can extract examples of his belief in community for learning, and the concepts of both personal and social transformation can be seen in his work and his community efforts. For example, in 1989, Buscaglia donated real estate valued at $500,000 towards USC, University of Southern California, and part of the money was devoted to scholarships for inner city teacher education. Now, upon completion of schooling, a student in receipt of this scholarship was required to teach a minimum of 2 years in an inner city high school in California. Another example of his community cooperative approach that he modeled can be seen in the foundation that he created, the Felice Foundation, in 1994. Again, Felice is his middle name. And this was to give special aid and attention to those who dedicated themselves to the betterment of personkind, through the dynamics of helping one another, structured around the dynamics of sharing and giving and influencing others to do the same. Again, you can see why this would be applicable to high school seniors. He said it was to encourage and to reinforce socially contributive behaviors where the focus is clearly outside of self, looking instead toward the welfare of others and community. In other words, learn to love yourself, learn to know yourself, your strengths and weaknesses, so that you can learn to give back to others. So after Love 1A, he began to write a series of best-selling books, which you may or may not have read. They've been translated into 20 languages. The books included Love, Living, Loving, and learning, loving each other, the disabled and their parents, and personhood. 5 of his books appeared on the New York Times bestseller list concurrently. Now, you can still get those books on Amazon, and I will tell you that I went back and bought a good number of those books and reread and rereading some of the other ones. We lost Leo Felice Buscaglia from a heart attack way too early on June 12th, 1998. And on July 18th, 1998, a tribute to his life was concluded as a global community event across the world called the following: Keeping Love Alive. The direction for this event was that people should go to the most beautiful place in their area, hopefully with a loved one or in a group, dedicated a sunset to Leo's memory, and also state a concrete way that you personally are going to help perpetuate his legacy of love. Now, I'm going to back up again for a second, because right now in our time, what we're facing, we need to think about keeping love alive. Love in oneself, love for family, love for the people that we see every day that help us in our lives through this pandemic. Because I can tell you, as a staff member here, it has certainly been challenging to go about my daily business, recreate things in programming, maintaining my personal life. There's been a lot of shifting. And considering that I can't hug in my toolbox right now and look people straight in the eye has had a profound effect on how I've conducted my life and have to keep conducting my life and reinventing. And that goes for you as well. You have not been able to spend time with your family or your friends. You've been spending time with yourselves. You have brought into your lives a unique period of time which you've never seen before. And I want to get back to that in just a few minutes. But first, you've heard me talk a lot about myself, the issues that I've been having, but I want you to hear from Dr. Buscaglia. Now, this presentation was part of a series done called The 11th Hour, which is now part of the University of Iowa's writing program, which is a superior writing program out of the University of Iowa. And you're going to see a series of 3 lectures. It's broken into 3 parts. 1 lecture that he gave in 3 parts that you're going to see, because that's how I was able to access it. And forgive the quality, but we're talking about the fact that this was done then in the early 80s. But focus, please, on his passion and his words, and derive from it what you can for your lives now. Now, I'm not trying to be preachy here. I'm not. I'm trying to help fill a void that, frankly, I've been having to use for a tool for myself. And that's why I'm sharing it with you, because we all need a little help. And I ask that you consider this for yourselves. So without further ado, the man who helped shape Bonnie into being a huggy person, and I hope one day those of you that don't know me will get to know that side of me. Dr. Leo Buscaglia.
Part of the 11th Hour series, which records living testaments from distinguished individuals delivering their lasting message to the world. In facing your own mortality, what final message would you leave for future generations?
You know, in love class, I used to have a simple exercise. Here, remember 20, 22-year-old university kids, and I'd say to them, what is the color of your mother's eyes? And you know that 80% of them weren't sure. 22 years with this incredible woman, and they didn't know what the color of her eyes were. I'd say, go home, take her cheeks in your hands. What are you doing? Shut up! I want to look at your eyes, Mama. Thank you for being with me at my 11th hour. You know that I've always preached that no one should ever cry alone and no one should ever die alone. And the wonder of it is that I have one more hour of life and a captive audience. So I'm in paradise. I've always had an idea that I want my epitaph to read, "Here lies Leo, who died living." And so this next hour, I'm going to really be into living. And, I talked to many people about coming and talking about my final hour. And they said, "Oh, Leo, how morbid." But it isn't morbid. It's only morbid if you've never lived. Then it becomes morbid. But if you've celebrated life like I've celebrated life, there's nothing morbid about death. You invite it in and you say, "How you doing, kid?" And whatever surprises you have, I'm ready for them. And I truly am. And the wonderful thing about it is that death is so democratic. It comes to everybody. It doesn't matter how rich or poor, how wise or dumb, how amazing you are, how famous you are. It doesn't matter. Death comes, and it comes at any time. It could be anybody's 11th hour. And that's not morbid. Recently I was in Chicago, and I was hunting for the post office. And so I saw a man standing by a bus stop, and I went over and I said, "Could you please tell me where the post office is?" And he turned and he said, "Hey, I know you." He said, "You're Leo Buscaluzzi." And I said, "Yeah, that's right." And he says, "What are you doing in Chicago, man?" I said, "Well, I'm here to do a lecture." And he said, "What are you going to be talking about?" And I said, "I'm going to be talking about finding your way to love." And he said, "Boy, that's amazing. You're going to talk about finding your way to love, and you can't even find your way to the post office." So, if you think I'm here as some kind of an authority about life or love, you're mistaking. I'm not an authority on anything. But in fact, I'm suspicious of experts. You know what I found out about experts over the years is that they're usually no wiser than any of us, except they're a little more organized and they have slides. But several years ago, I had a fantastic experience. I was taken by some friends to a special church in Los Angeles. And they said, "Leo, this church was meant for you because everybody loves each other and they hug each other and they sing and they celebrate and they dance. You're going to love this place." So we went down there, we walked in the door, and no sooner I walked in, it was true. Everybody came up and they took my hand. They said, "Oh, welcome, brother." And they put their arms around me and they took me down to a bench, and we sat down together on this bench, and they held my hand. I thought, I'm in paradise. This is really what I've been looking for all my life. We're so afraid to touch each other. I approach people like this and they start screaming, "What's he going to do to me?" I'm not going to do anything to you. I'm going to put my arms around you. I'm going to say, "Isn't it nice as one human being to relate to another?" But in this place, everything went, and they were dancing and they were celebrating and we were having the best time. It was really what religion is all about. A celebration of life, a celebration of people, a celebration of beauty, a celebration of joy. And I was really ecstatic. And finally, the minister got up and he said, "Brothers and sisters, Brother Jonathan is going to give the sermon today, and he's going to speak on faith." And I thought, oh, great, I love faith. I can't wait to hear what he says. And so little brother Jonathan got out of the congregation, and I wish you could have seen him. His eyes were dancing. There were little figures in there. He was emanating a marvelous feel for life. And he was just about so big, he had no hair. And he got up in front of everybody, and he smiled, this big, broad smile. And he folded his little hands, and he closed his eyes, and he said, "Faith, faith, 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 faith." And he sat down. And that's the best talk on faith I ever heard in my life. And I thought, someday, Leo, you're going to have enough guts to stand before an audience, since my message is love, 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 and you're simply going to say love, 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 and then sit down. but don't believe it. I'm going to stay up here for a while longer. One thing I learned many, many years ago that really helped me, that I was able to put into 3 little words: synthesize, compromise, and empathize. And sympathize, by saying synthesize, what I mean is bring things together in life. Don't be scattered. Focus in on how magical this life really is, and that it's the only one you'll ever have as far as you know. And so it was meant to be celebrated in the most wondrous way that you can. So synthesize in and love everything with a passion. And I mean everything. And you'll be so surprised what this does for you and your life and all the people in it. Love everyone. And I know that you say, oh, now really, Leo, love everyone. And I'll never forget, one of the great experiences in my life was being on a late night talk show. And I'm not going to identify the host. It'll be up to you to guess. And you'll have to suffer and worry about it all the time. But anyway, I came in on this show, and I was the last guest of the evening. And I came in and I sat down, and the first thing this gentleman said to me was, I understand that you say you gotta love everybody. And I thought, oh, that's a nice start. And I said, yes, I think so. You should love everybody. He said, that's stupid. You can't love everybody, and you shouldn't love everybody, and it's unrealistic. And so in my naivete, I said, well, who would you exclude? He got mad. He got pale. And then he said, well, there are people I just don't like. And I said, oh, that's too bad. I said, I think if you had an opportunity to get to know them, you might find some nice things about them. And then it started going downhill from there. And it went down and went down and went down and went down. And, you have heard how popular it is for guests to walk out on the host. In this case, the host walked out on me. And those of you who saw it, remember that as the titles were going on, there was Leo sitting on this stage all by himself. Because all I did was say we should love everybody. And here was somebody who was furious because I had said we should love everybody. But I really should think, I really suggest that you think, who is it you should exclude? And then ask yourself the question of why. And then I think you should love yourself. And this really bothers people. But it isn't true. Most of us really don't like ourselves. And if push comes to shove, you would much rather be someone else. And that's a pity, because you can't be. No matter how hard you try. What you are is what there is. Hug it. Love it. Stand before the mirror and say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the sweetest one of all? You are, you sweet old thing. And you don't do that because you're on an egocentric trip. The only thing you can give to anybody else, including those people you love with a passion, is what you are. So if you dedicate yourself to making yourself the most wonderful, the most incredible, the most unique, the most magnificent person there is, not to stand in front of the mirror, but to give it to everybody else. That's a beautiful goal in life. I want to give a perfect me. And so you really have to start that way. It starts with you. And as much as you'd like to be somewhere else or someone else, you can't be. And so use what you have and the resources that you have to develop that, and then give it away and find out what happens. There is someone for everyone. You may not be able to see it, but there it is. And then love learning. There's so much in this world to know. We could live to be 5,000 years old, and we would not know everything. And that's the joy. You can never be bored. Open the windows, open the doors. See like you've never seen, touch like you've never touched, smell like you've never smelled, taste like you've never tasted, hug like you've never hugged. And then there's more, and then there's more, and then there's more. It's so wonderful. You know, I had a wonderful Papa. Many of you know that I wrote a lot of things about Papa. But Papa was an Italian immigrant. He could barely speak English. He worked hard all of his life. He gave so much. He gave love like I've never seen it. He used to give zucchini all the time. He had more zucchini. You know, my mother had to be the most creative cook in the world to cook zucchini in 10,000 ways. But Papa was so generous, and he loved learning because he himself was denied formal learning. Even though he was one of the wisest people I've ever known. He had only 5 years of education. But you know what he used to do? He says, to the greatest sin in the world, he used to tell his kids, and he had a lot of bambini. And he used to say, the greatest sin in the world is to wake up in the morning as stupid as you went to bed at night. And so you learn, all of my bambini must learn something new every day. We thought that stank. And we'd ask our friends, does your father insist you learn something new every day? They said, we don't even see our father. Well, we did, because Papa always said, nobody leaves the dinner table until we've shared. And so we'd sit there, you know, Mama would cook up these storms, so much pasta you couldn't see your sister across the table. And then you'd eat and you'd drink and you'd have a good time and you'd talk, and nobody split. Everybody sat there, you know, and after it was over, he would go through this ritual of saying to each of his kids, what did you learn today? You know, and I remember when we'd get ready to go eat, we'd be in the bathroom washing our hands, and I'd say to my sister, what did you learn today? And she'd say, nothing. And I'd say, you better learn something. So we'd get the encyclopedia and we'd flip to something. And you know, you find something really world-shaking, like the population of Nepal is 3 million, blah, 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 you know. So you'd sit down, and after it was over, Papa would push himself away from the table, and he would look at his bambini. He'd look at us. You know, isn't it, you know, I'm convinced that we're all dying of loneliness because nobody looks at us. They look through us, they look around us, they look under us. They do things for us when all we really want to do is be seen. You know, Mommy used to take our cheeks, probably in her hands like this, and she'd say, oh, you're so cute. She'd say, Mommy, you're killing me. Why are you doing with this? Shut up. That was her favorite expression. Shut up, she'd say. I'm looking at you. You know, so Papa would look around at his bambini and he'd say, you know, I got to look at you, he said, because you're all changing so fast that one day I won't even know who you are anymore if I don't look. And it's true. You know, in love class, I used to have a simple exercise. Here, remember, 22-year-old university kids. And I'd say to them, what is the color of your mother's eyes? And you know that 80% of them weren't sure. 22 years with this incredible woman, and they didn't know what the color of her eyes were. I'd say, go home, take her cheeks in your hands. What are you doing? Shut up. I want to look at your eyes, Mama. But anyway, Papa would stay there. He'd say, okay, he said, what did you learn today? Hey, Felice, which of course you know is my name. Hey, Felice, what did you learn today? You'd say the population of Nepal is 3,400,000. And nothing was ever insignificant for this man. He'd say, huh. He'd say, he's crazy. I mean, I'm a crazy Papa. He'd say, 3,460,000, but that's so wonderful. Then he'd say, Mama, did you know that? And my mama sitting down at the other end of the table said, not only didn't I know it, but I don't even know where the hell Nepal is. You know, so we'd get an encyclopedia and we'd look it up. And the wonder is we were learning together. And I'm convinced that those people who learn together stay together. We were learning. And you know, even now, sometimes I work 97 hours a day. And I go to bed at night, and I'm just about ready to go to sleep, and I see Papa's face, and he says, "Hey, Felicia, what did you learn today?" And I try to figure out what I learned. And if I can't learn it, usually I have to get up out of bed and get an encyclopedia and go to work. So I never stop learning. And then, love, frustration, and conflict too. We're a crazy country. If you're not giddily happy, there must be something wrong. You watch television, people go insane over post toasties. They're just giddy over breakfast. And you wonder, what's the matter with me? Why am I not giddy over everything that's happening? And if you aren't happy, you immediately pop pills, you take drugs, you do all kinds of things to turn yourself on when there's so much stimulation you don't really need it. But accept frustration and conflict as a part of life, because it is a part of life, and a very important one. It's the part of life from which you will learn. I had a wonderful little dog many years ago. His name was Faux Pas, and it was just that too. He was a little white dog, and he was so brilliant. And when I was housebreaking him, I just took him out in the garden once. We had a little doggy door, and I said, "Now, Faux Pas, the world is your toilet. But not out there, not in this house." And he understood. He said, okay. And so from then on, it was every time Faux Pas had to poop, it was through the door out in the garden. And then on Saturdays, which was one of my few free days, I had to get a rake and go out and clean up the poop. And I want to tell you, I didn't like that on Saturdays. I thought of 1,000 other things I'd rather do. But Faux Pas loved it. And his tail would wag, he was so excited. And we'd go out, and you remember when you were a kid, you played that game, You're Getting Hot? As you're getting closer to the desired thing. And he would tell me, I'd go toward the tree, and his tail would start wagging. "Come on, Leo, you're getting warm." And so I'd get out there with the rake, and it was always there. And so we were doing it, and one day he had me way in the back of the yard, and I was saying, "Faux Pas, this time you're altogether wrong." Oh no, the tail was getting warmer and warmer. And I got back there, and just as I was about to find it, I looked over to the side, and I saw a great big gigantic red rose. It looked like Italian velvet. I didn't even know it was back there. And all at once it flashed in my mind, good grief, if it hadn't been for the poop, I never would have seen the rose. So don't be afraid of a little poop. And learn to laugh at yourself. Everyone is so serious nowadays. Everything is hilarious. The world is crazy. And you're only going to survive if you're crazy too. Only the insane ones are going to survive. All the rest are going to go to a nut house. But look at human behavior. I love to talk about what I think is the most incredible human behavior, elevator behavior. Have you ever seen people, including ourselves, in an elevator? They walk in and they turn around this way. Whoever told you to do that? And then you sit there and you're really uncomfortable because you don't dare touch anybody, So if you touch someone, someone may scream. And the only thing left to do is everybody sitting there counting the numbers. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. I just love to get in an elevator and turn straight on and say hi. And then they get to the 6th floor, the door opens, and everybody leaves. There's a cuckoo man in the elevator. But I once heard that all saints are transcendental clowns. And that's true. Make people laugh. You laugh. If you need to have something to laugh about, just look at yourself. You're hilarious. And then, compromise. We really forget. We go around acting as if the world was made for us. And boy, do we get mad when everything doesn't go just exactly as we planned it. Next time, notice that. You walk in and there's a line somewhere. And you say, "I hate this kind of lines." Well, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't kill those people. So get in line and have fun. Gads, lady, you have the most beautiful hair. Or look in the basket and that line in the market and say, boy, you could have a good dinner. You got a place for me? Heaven knows you may meet the man of your dreams. But we want everything to go our way. And we've forgotten that this is a world where you really find happiness when you learn to give a little and take a little. And you know, I learned that in a wonderful way. I love fall leaves. Those of you who know me and my work and my books, I'm always talking about fall leaves. It's a very significant time in my life, and I love the fall when all the leaves burst. And so I'm one of those that when the leaves fall, I don't rake them up. Well, that just annoyed the hell out of my neighbors. Because here's what you'll have to imagine my house. Here's the two neighbors. Clean, 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 clean. And then here's Leo's house, dirty, 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 dirty. And that's how they saw it, you know. And so I thought, well, it's wonderful. It's my house, my yard. And I used to have a seminar where I always had my students to my house, and we would sit there on the floor and we'd talk about all these things and changing the world and making the world a better place, etc. There was a knock on the door. It was my two nice neighbors, and they are nice. And they said, you know, Leo, I wish you'd clean the leaves. You know, I said, I didn't know you didn't like the leaves, or I would have cleaned them. I tell you, I really would have. I'll do it right away, you know. And they said, well, that's all right. No, I will. And so I walked back in the living room, and all my students were furious. Cop out! Why didn't you tell them to mind their own business? It's your yard, you know, and using Mama's best technique. I said, shut up! Get out there and pick up those leaves. Put them in a bucket. Bring them in and dump them on the living room floor. They can't yet tell me I can't do that. They thought I was kidding. You know what the leaves? Oh, yes, I do. We went out and got them. We brought them in, dumped them on the living room floor, and sat on them and had the best seminar we ever had. I kept them there for weeks. You know, I had my leaves, and my neighbors had their clean, clean, clean. And everybody won, just by a tiny bit of compromise. And then let's empathize. Let's recognize that everybody, if we got to know them, would have something to teach us that we would better understand them with. Give them a chance. Learn to listen. Learn to appreciate. And then I think the final thing I'd like to share with you is being thankful. I mean, what a pity that we have so much and we so seldom say thank you. One of my assignments was for the kids to go home and say to their mothers, Mom, thanks a lot. We lost more mothers that way. But you know, I had a Buddhist teacher that had the most wonderful thing that he used to, after our exercises where we were talking about philosophy, we'd all stand up, he said, now let us rise and be thankful. For if we didn't find the answer to all of the world's problems today, at least we found a few. And even if we didn't find a few, at least we didn't get sick. And if we did get sick, at least we didn't die. So let's be thankful. I love that. I've been so thankful for my life. To me, life has been a continual celebration. And I've seen my life and all the wonder in it as God's gift to me. And how I've lived it and shared it and enhanced it is my gift to God. And I've strived really in my lifetime to make it a perfect gift. And if I've failed, at least God knows I've tried. Thank you for sharing this time with me.
So, Dr. Leo Buscaglia, these are just some of the books. Grab a piece of paper, grab a pencil, and write some of these titles down. Most notably, Living, Loving, and Learning, Loving Each Other, Love, and Personhood. Again, as much as I would like to say go get them at your local bookstore, we can't go to those bookstores right now, but when you can, order them there, or perhaps you can call them and they can order them for you and have them shipped to your home, or else through Amazon. These are not hard readings. They're plain and simple. And I have read and reread some of these books on a number of occasions. And I also want to acknowledge here that I was able to really cultivate a living, loving, and loving each other from my mother, who is no longer with us. She had Alzheimer's, and we cared for her for 12 years in a variety of scenarios. So I come by this position both personally and professionally, like so many of my coworkers who've experienced it firsthand. But I want to say that my mother was genuinely one of the warmest people. She would hug, she would love. That was her legacy. And I'm glad to be able to carry it on. Not quite as well as she did, but to anybody who knew Barbara Celeb, yes, she was a loving, kind person and laughed almost until the end. So um, I wanted to share that with you as well. Now, one more thing that I want to ask of you before we conclude today's presentation is that there are some quotes. I'm going to read them along with you. And then after this, I'm going to ask a really big favor. And I hope that there are a number of you watching and that you will be able to respond to my mission that I'm undertaking here. Some of the quotes from Dr. Buscaglia, which I shared with our residents here in our assisted living facility, and I'm not sure that you can see it, but I gave them all a little card with that I did. I call it during my insomnia time. In the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep, I would put these cards, the quotes on cards with little red hearts that they could have them. And some of these quotes, because you really can't see them, are: a single rose can be my garden, a single friend, my world. Worry never robs tomorrow of its sorrow. It only saps today of its joy. Change is the end result of all true learning. Love is life. And if you miss love, you miss life. And I think you heard that message loud and clear in his lecture. Your talent is God's gift to you. What you do with your gift is to God. Let me say that again. Your talent is God's gift to you. What you do, it is your gift to God. Love is always bestowed as a gift, freely, willingly, and without expectation. And don't hold to anger, hurt, or pain. They steal your energy and keep you from love. I'm pretty sure that so many of you, in bringing up your children, shared similar expressions of wisdom. These are all pretty natural, organic, intuitive lines of thinking, yet we need to remind ourselves of this. So, the last thing I'm going to ask of you before we conclude today, and I was hoping that I could show you these cards because, and I'm going to stand back, and they're white, so you can't see it on a pink background, the background that I have. But if you take an index card and share some words of wisdom, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that we've all been hearing about the protests all over our state, all over our country and the world on the heels of the May 25th, 2020 killing of George Floyd, a 46-year-old Black man. He died in Minneapolis, Minnesota, after police officer Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes while he was handcuffed in the street. Now, throughout your lifetime, many of you have experienced or witnessed bias, injustice, and in persecution. You have, and we need your help. You are in a unique position now in your lives to use the wisdom that you've gained through the years to support our very diverse and dedicated staff here at Newbridge on the Charles. People that have worked tirelessly to help make your lives go as smoothly as they possibly could during this pandemic. They need your help. We need your help. I need your help. We're asking you to write notes of encouragement or words of wisdom for our staff. Things that you may have learned from your bubby, your Zeta, from your mother, your father, through your own life experiences, sharing some of your life experiences on bias and injustice. And put those words down. Put them on an index card, a piece of paper. We want to post them around the building. I'll be honest with you, we're all kind of struggling right now, and need a little help in building our reservoir. And we could use the support and encouragement from you. The things that you have learned over your vast, beautiful, difficult, messy lives. Share with us. Share what you will, your words of wisdom or your experience. You can put your name down or not, but please think of us right now because we could use that. We could use your wisdom. And I'm asking that if you wouldn't mind emailing those to me at bonnieedes@hsl.harvard.edu. Again, it's Bonnie Edes, my full name, at hsl.harvard.edu. Or you can send them to Larissa. You know her email as well. But like this is the beginning of spring, things are blooming. I'd like to see, we, the staff at Newbridge, would like to see your words come to life throughout our buildings as we walk through the corridors to do what we need to do throughout the day, to see those expressions from you. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing those. On behalf of the Newbridge programming team, I'm Bonnie Edes. Thank you for watching today's presentation.